There we go. All right. We're recording today. Welcome back from spring break. We are going to review Module 9, Lesson 5. We're going to go over some of the vocab real quick, kind of the key concept. I'll go through the course arc, and I got a few review questions, okay? So we're not going to go into the notebook too much because we did that before the break. And if you missed that, I have those recordings posted on the live session page for last week, all right? Or the last week that we had classes, okay? So real quick, go ahead and let's go into our Canvas course. If you go to modules, and we're going to just review Module 9, Lesson 5. Like I said, we did this before the break, but just to ease back into things, I think everybody's struggling a little bit today getting back in the routine and stuff. So let's go ahead, open up the course arc and the notebook. Okay, once you have the course arc open, the key question that asked us is what is the proper role of government in the economy? And this is looking at fiscal and monetary policy. Okay, that's our lesson, fiscal monetary policy. So basically, to what extent, if any, should the government be involved in the economy? All right. And the reality is that I would say 99% of people say the government should be involved to some extent. The question is how much? Okay, we need the government. We need the government involved in the economy. If you want an example of government not being involved in the economy, look back at the Industrial Revolution. So I'm sure you covered this in world history, US history, and it was dog eat dog. All right, it was survival of the fittest economics. And a lot of people succeeded, but even more people struggled. And actually, quality of life went down at the expense. So the rich getting richer at the expense of the poor. And that concept should not be okay. Our success should never be at the expense of someone else. I think we should all be able to have our success, but if we're hurting someone else in the process, right, then that's, crossing a barrier. So over time, government has become more and more involved to create boundaries, to make it more fair, to having minimum wage, 40-hour work weeks, regulations for each industry to make it safe, whether it's a factory or a restaurant or healthcare or whatever that industry is, safe practices that we shouldn't be discriminated against because of our gender, ethnicity, ideology, sexuality, any of those kinds of things. It should be based on the performance that we do, right? Are we good at our job? Are we doing what we're supposed to do, and stuff? So over time, government has become more and more involved in the economy. We see over spring break, right? Anybody catch that bank in California that failed, and the government is stepping in and they're refunding people their deposits, and stuff. So that's another example. If the government didn't step in, it would drive us further into a recession. It makes us nervous if our money isn't safe in the bank. Welcome to the Great Depression. Because that's literally what happens. Governments or banks failed and your money was just gone. So think whatever money you have in the bank right now, imagine it was just gone. And let me tell you, if that happened to me right now, I would have to hyperventilate and get off this call. I would lose it because I have money in certain accounts and they are for specific things, and it would be I would lose it. It would be a meltdown for me because I would know what to do. Because my whole life's work and what I'm working toward, and Carter, you're doing that too, right? And the closer I think you get toward retirement, things like that, it becomes even more urgent that things are stable. So it's scary to people. So to what extent should the government be involved? Okay. So we looked at the key vocab. So let's take a look at that. And like I said, we're just going to kind of quickly browse through the course arc. I'm not going to do everything and kind of do some of the questions. Make sure you have this done. So if you didn't do the course arc, then do it with me. Otherwise, see this as a review for your quiz. Okay. So we looked at a fiscal policy used to reduce economic growth. Okay. So this is to often through decreasing spending or higher taxes. That's going to be contractionary policy. So we're going to talk about that. We're actually going through that right now, right, where we're trying to lower inflation. The use of government spending and revenue collection to influence the economy. Okay, so influence the economy. A policy used to encourage economic growth. Okay, so we saw this at the beginning of the pandemic. All right, things done by the government to try to increase our economic growth. The 12-month period used for the federal process, that's going to be the fiscal year. So fiscal year, the 12 months of the budget. And then the written document estimating what the government brings in and what they spend. So that would be their budget. So let's jump over into the PowerPoint, all right? And this is the same terms, okay, that we did from matching. And let's take a minute and let's review expansionary policy and contradictionary policy, because this really, if you're going to focus in or remember one thing from this lesson, this is kind of the two things. Okay, what the government does to stimulate the economy, or what the government does to try to regulate or bring down the economy. Okay, so let's talk about expansionary policy really quick. Think back to the beginning of the pandemic. All right, beginning of the pandemic. Can anybody think of anything that the government did to try to expand the economy, to stimulate? Everybody was freaking out, right? We thought, oh gosh, this is going to send us into a recession. Things are going to get really bad. So the government did a bunch of things to stimulate our economy, to keep people from spending, keep people spending, keep people employed, to keep money in people's pockets if they weren't employed. What is anything that you can think of that the government did to try to expand or stimulate the economy at the beginning of the recession? Anybody? We talked about this. Yes, they gave people money, the stimulus checks, right? Was there two or three? I forget. There were two or three. Okay. Yes, they gave people checks. So that was to try to get people, one, to help them pay their bills, or two, if you were paying your bills, okay, then hey, go out and buy something new. I think I've showed that I put a pergola on the back my backyard. Okay. So I was able to pay my bills. So I was like, hey, this is some extra money I didn't have. I can extend so I have more shade. More affordable housing. Yes, so the way they did that, they drove down interest rates. So interest rates were some of the record low. They were like 2-3%, right? So low. So when people were going to get loans for homes, it was more affordable. So it was encouraging people to go buy houses, to go buy cars. Loan rates were really, really low. Very good. Anything else? Unemployment checks were increased. So unemployment's been around. So it's not like that wasn't new. Unemployment checks have been around, but they increased how much people could get while they were looking in between jobs. So if they lost their job or something like that because of the recession or getting sick or something like that, they were able to collect unemployment. You were able to collect it longer and more money than usual. So usually there's a limit, it's like 3 to 6 months, like it's a shorter period of time, because the goal is it's supposed to be temporary. It's not supposed to be long-term. It's supposed to carry you over till you find something else. So they extended that. I believe people could get it up to a year, and they gave more money than normal. So that would definitely be an example. And stuff. So they did a lot of different things to try to encourage, they lowered taxes. So more write-offs. When you lower taxes, that, yes, housing assistance, when you lower taxes, that encourages businesses to hire more. So part of the reason they do that, they lower taxes. So if I don't have to pay as much in taxes and I own a business, then hopefully that'll encourage me to go hire somebody. So to take that money that I got and either expand my business or hire more people, provide more jobs. Okay. So they did a bunch of things. Very good. All right. Problem was they overstimulated a little bit. All right. They gave maybe a few too many checks or extended things a little too long or something like that. And now we experience record housing prices, auto prices, gas prices, inflation. Okay. We overinflated the market. So now we're having to do the opposite. The government is trying to do contradictionary policy. We went so high up, and now it's like, oh, that's too high. You got to come back down. Okay. So think the best. I heard this great analogy about the economy. It's like a hose. Okay. So if you ever hose and you're trying to spray something off, if the hose is turned on too small, if you turn the water pressure on too small, you can't really spray it, right? Think you're trying to wash a car or something like that, right? You need like a good amount of pressure, but you don't want it on so high that you're taking off the paint. So it's this fine line with the economy where you want to stimulate it. You want to have good water pressure. You want to keep, a good economy, but sometimes we get a little too high. And that's what happened during a lot of the assistance things they gave were great, but maybe we should have lowered them down, or we extended them for a little bit too long. And so now, last year and this year, we're seeing super high inflation, housing prices, auto prices, gas prices. So now the government's trying to bring it back down. So we're seeing them do the opposite, which is contradictionary policy. So can you think of anything that the government is doing right now, currently, or has been doing the last year to try to decrease inflation, to try to bring down the inflation that we've experienced? Of prices have gotten too high. And so we talked about this a little bit. Can anybody think of an example? This one might be a little bit harder. If we go in the course arc, there's actually some great examples. Grocery store prices, yeah, so the goal is we're trying to bring down grocery store prices, so the question is how do they do that? Because the government can't just go in and set prices, right? Well, that would be socialism or that would be communism. So there we don't live in a communist society. So that's they're trying to offset that. So the question is, how do they try to get those prices down? They have to do it indirectly. So that is good. We want prices to come down. So how do they do that? And they have to do it indirectly. So let's take a look at it. All right. So because this can be a little bit harder concept to grasp. Okay. So let's review a little bit. So when we look at federal spending, let's review some of the multiple choice till we get to the expansionary contradictory policies. So this one was based on the data which category is most likely responsible for the steep growth in spending. So we said we have other, which is 1.78 billion, or sorry, 178 billion, physical resources, 215 billion, net interest. So cost to borrow what we pay on our debt, 220 billion, defense, 677 billion, and then human resources, 2,346 billion. So that's things like Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, programs that people are entitled to do, especially when you get to retirement age. If you paid into Social Security, you qualify for Medicare. These are resources you get. This is part of the biggest reason for the growth of spending. So go ahead and click Human Resources, push Submit. Okay, we'll go to the next page. How are these decisions made? So this is expansionary and contradictionary policy. Okay, so we saw this and we looked at this toolbox. All right, so if we want to increase or expand the economy, increase government spending, tax cuts. So we saw that with the stimulus checks. We saw that with better interest rates on loans. It was like 2-3% to get a house, to get a car loan. It was super cheap, it's stuff. So this encouraged people to go out and spend, to expand their businesses and hire. But now we've seen the opposite. We've gone too far. Prices got too high. Shortage got too low. So we're trying to do what's called contradictionary policy. So the way they do that is they increase taxes. So example of that would be basically taking away tax cuts. So there was a bunch of tax cuts they gave over the last couple of years, and some of those are expiring. Let's say unemployment. They expanded unemployment for longer and the amount. Now they're going back to kind of the pre-pandemic examples. So for example, you could still collect unemployment, but it'll be less than before and not as long. When I say less than before, I mean the same as before the pandemic. So it's supposed to be a temporary help and not making it permanent. Another example, student loans. So for a while, they froze student loans during the pandemic. So student loans are coming back. You got to pay your student loans. Okay. So kind of getting back to the normal expenses and the way that things are. They increase interest rates. We saw the feds, right? Things have been at 6-7% for a home loan. So for example, if a house was $300,000 2 years ago, but the interest rate was 2 or 3%, that payment was pretty low. It was pretty affordable. Now, if you go get the same house, 300,000, let's say you say this, pay the same price, but it's 6 or 7%, you're going to pay easily $500-600 more a month just because of 3 or 4% difference in interest rate. So the interest rate makes a huge difference. So what that does is that discourages people from going out and spending. Car prices, we're seeing that. Loans on automobiles are really high right now, the interest rate. So it's discouraging people. So the goal of doing that is that it'll drive the price down. The more people buy, the higher the price goes. The less people buy, the lower the price is. So hopefully, to come back to groceries, as everything else is lowering, hopefully then groceries will lower. Okay, so if gas prices are lower, that'll reduce the expense that it is to transport our food, because think all that gets paid over into the shelf. If it's expensive to feed the cattle, right, then the price of that beef gets handed over to us. If grain and hay and things are cheaper, then that cow is cheaper, then the price of the beef when we go to buy it will be cheaper. It all interconnects. It all interconnects. Their expenses get handed over to us. So hopefully with time, those expenses will come down. So contradictory spending. All right, let's look at the other multiple choice. If the government leaders wanted to spur economic growth, what tool could they use? So looking at the toolbox, if they want to spur economic growth, okay, that's going to cut taxes and increase government spending, which absolutely they did, right? They made it more affordable for businesses. They gave us stimulus checks. They made interest rates lower, and they gave more tax cuts to people. And that did stimulate our economy. Unfortunately, we stimulated it just a little bit too much, and now we're having to kind of counterbalance that a little bit. Okay, let's look at this other one. What percentage did GDP spending, or sorry, what percentage of GDP spending was spent by the federal, state, and local governments in 2010? Okay, so if we look here, personal consumption was over 10,000 GDP. So state and local, that made up 1,200, and federal, which was purple, made up 1,700. So if we add these two together, okay, 1,200 plus 1,700 and change is roughly 3,000. Okay, so 3,000 billion. I think that was the last multiple choice. Let's take a look here really quick. I think that was it. Just making sure. Remember, they did the really good example with the Minions movie of how we can stimulate the economy or how we can bring things back by giving loans or making it harder to get loans. Okay, yeah, that was the rest of the multiple choice. So we looked through the course arc, okay? So it was an opportunity to make sure that you have that done. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Your course arc 100% should be done. We did it before spring break, and then we just went through it really quickly again. So that for sure should be done. That should be 100% grade, you're done. Okay, the notebook, we did that last week. Again, if you're gonna go back or if you miss any of that, those videos are available to you. So let's spend a few minutes reviewing before I let you go, okay? So I have your review sheet. And so for tomorrow, the notebook is due, the course arc is due, and the quiz is due. So the course arc should be done. The notebook, we did all but one of the questions. So if you did that with us before spring break, then you only have one question you need to do. And then we have the quiz. So let's take a look at the review sheet real quick. And then I got 3 sample questions we can look through. The review sheet is super helpful to you. Okay. So it has your key vocab on here. And oftentimes a couple of those questions will be from the vocab. All right. So definitely you don't want to skip that. Notes throughout the course arc, and stuff. So for example, the 4 steps to making a fiscal budget, so remember the fiscal year is 12 months and that federal budget that the government puts out, that comes from 4 major steps. So let's review it really quick. So first step, each agency has to create a budget. What are they going to spend? So these agencies operate under the president. So remember those 15 cabinet members. So maybe it's Department of Transportation, Education, Aviation, Defense, borders. It could be Social Security. It could be medical, education, all these transportation, all these different things. They have to submit budgets. Here's what we're spending. Here's what we're offering. Okay. And so they have to submit that to the executive branch. So then the executive branch, the president's office, okay, people that work for the president, collect all these different budgets and submit it into one proposal. And then they send it to Congress. So step 3. So once it gets to Congress, this is where the House and the Senate have to vote and approve it. Because remember, we don't want the president just to have a blank check. We want the president to be accountable. And if the president just has a blank check, it basically becomes like a dictatorship. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't really matter what we say. So Congress is good because these are other elected officials, right, that then kind of create a checks and balance and hopefully regulate that spending and make the president and the executive branch more accountable for that spending. And then finally, once Congress, the House, and the Senate approve it, write the check, sign the check, I should say, then it gets sent back to the president and the president's office, the White House, and they approve it, and then the money is dispersed. So I put in some of the graphs. This was one of the multiple choice that we looked at, who is responsible for the most spending, and it's definitely entitlement programs. So like Social Security, Medicare programs, when people retire, those are expensive. We pay into them in our taxes, but they are expensive. Okay, we see the example of the expansionary contradictionary policy, right? So if we want to expand the economy, what does the government do? Or if we need to kind of bring things down, kind of level things out, which we're seeing that right now, then what can the government do? And then I have some extra questions from the multiple choice. So let's jump back over into the PowerPoint and let's go over a couple of these questions. These are straight from the test bank. All right, so take a guess. All right, because there's a good chance you could see this question on the quiz. All right, so let's do it. First one, which of the following situations would result in the government budget deficit? So which of these would result in the government spending more than it makes? So remember, deficit is when you spend more than you make. So which of these would result in that, okay? A, the government spends the same as it collects in taxes. B, the Federal Reserve lends more than it borrows. C, the government spends more than it collects in taxes. Or D, the Federal Reserve borrows more than it lends. So what do we think? A, B, C, or D? Let's take a guess. Okay. Thank you, Whisper. I got a C. Let's hear some more guesses. Don't worry, I'm not keeping track. So just take a guess. All right, JD, you're thinking D. Okay, keep going. Let's hear some more guesses. Got 26 people in this meet. So let's take a guess. So we're kind of going back and forth between C and D. I'll give you a hint. It is one of those two. One of those two is correct. Let's get a few more guesses. This is good review because this could very well be a question on your quiz. It's from the test bank. There's like 20 questions and you do 7. So the chances of getting it, especially if you take it multiple times, you'll probably see this question. Let's get a few more people to guess, please. Hello, where are you? Wake up. I'm just asking for a guess. I'm not asking for your
spring break aftershock, Miss Hall.
I know. I'm not asking for your left arm.
Well, at least not today.
No, that's Wednesday. Okay. It is, drum roll. It is C. It is C. Okay. The government spends more than it collects in taxes. Okay. So which of the following situations would result in the government budget deficit? So this would be C, government spending more than it collects in taxes. Okay. So if you want to take a picture of this, make note of this or something, this is a great opportunity. Again, these are some questions directly from the test bank that will help you on your quiz. Okay. Let's get another question. What organization controls monetary policy in the United States? So there's a lot of different agencies within the United States. Which one specifically controls the monetary policy, the spending? Okay, so is that A, the Federal Reserve Board, FED, the Feds, B, Federal Trade Commission, C, Securities and Exchange Commission, SECT, or D, Department of Transportation? So let's hear some guesses. JD is saying A. I got B. B. Let's get a few more guesses. Again, no harm in guessing. It's not like I'm keeping track and nothing. It's all good.
Hey,
all right.
I mean, you got a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right.
Yeah, 25%. Get 1 or 2 more guesses. You're gonna want to stick around for this because so far I'll give you a hint. It's not B. Get a few more guesses. Thanks, Marie. Keep guessing. So all of these agencies exist. It's just which one deals with the spending. So the interest rates and the money flow. Okay. All right. The correct answer is, drum roll, A. It's the Feds. Okay. A. It's the Federal Reserve Board. Okay. So Federal Trade Commission, they deal with that trade. So they're going to deal with imports and exports. So not necessarily monetary policy, the economy. Okay. So they're going to deal with like importing things from other countries, exporting things to other countries, you know. Securities and Exchange Commission, that's going to be like stocks, bonds. So think like the stock market. Okay. Things like that. Department of Transportation is just that. So that's going to be like our roads and airplanes and bridges and all kinds of, you know, stuff like that. Okay. So it's going to be A, the Federal Reserve Board, Federal Reserve Board. So all of these agencies exist. It's just which one deals with monetary policy. All right, let's do one more. What happens when a country's money supply increases faster than the goods and services it produces? Give you a hint. We're going through it right now. All right, so this is very much a real-time question. Okay, so is it A, equilibrium, B, inflation, C, unemployment, D, stability? Which happens when you have more money than goods and services is produced? What happens? Let's get a few more people to guess. Come on, folks. This is the last thing, and then I'm letting you go.
Where is everybody, Miss Hall?
I don't know. I guess they just want to hang out. I know that we're really fun to hang out with. Like they're like, we don't want to leave class. We want to be here all day with you. So you're like, oh no. Don't get those ideas. All right, awesome. It looks like most of you are on track with this. Okay, the correct answer is B. It is B, inflation. Yes. So what happens is the value of the money goes down. We overinflate, right? So we're seeing 40-year high right now. So even though I'm making the same amount of money that I did 2-3 years ago, because things cost so much more, right? The value of my money isn't going as far, right? So that's inflation for you. When you're like, I made the same amount, but when things get more expensive, it's like you're making less money, right? Because the value of your money is not going as far because things are more expensive. Okay. So we're experiencing, so that's what they're trying to do right now with higher interest rates and stuff like that. They're trying to bring down the inflation. They're trying to bring down the price of things so that the value of our money is higher. I can buy more with my money. Okay. So exactly that. All right, good. So we're experiencing that for sure right now. All right. So the course arc should be done. Did a little bit of review. Your review sheet. I want to point out one thing on your review sheet also. At the end of your review sheet, these are literally extra questions that I've included that are from the test bank. Okay, so review these questions. Don't skip them. Take a look at them. All right, some of them we went over. These are some extra ones also. All right, so use those to your advantage. Okay, that can really help you on those quizzes because that's eggs for $2. Wouldn't that be nice? Sort of sale for eggs for two for $2. When was the last time I saw that? I would love that. I think I got eggs for $4 this weekend and I felt like I scored. I was like, wow, so cheap, like under $5. I felt really good about it. You had the store this weekend too. Nice. So use your review sheet. Okay, use it. So tomorrow, course arc, notebook, and quiz are due. Okay. Start the quarter out right. Okay. The biggest impact on your grade is going to be the summative stuff. So the quizzes, the projects. Okay. So make sure that you're not skipping those. Don't get me wrong. The formative stuff certainly helps and it's supposed to make you score better on the summative, but don't skip the quiz. You get 3 attempts. It keeps your highest score. Okay. If you need anything, come see myself or Ms. Carter tomorrow. All that information, right, is on the homepage. Right. I'm available 1:20 to 2:15 tomorrow. So you're welcome to come during 5th because my office hours are in the afternoon. NVLA Hall KSG. All right. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you on Wednesday. We're going to start 9.6. Okay. 9.6 on Wednesday. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Welcome back.
Yep. Welcome back. Yay. Bye. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Miss Hall.
Bye. See you later, Miss Carter.